Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Professional Learning Online. Today the video is about Selenium automation testing. Selenium is an automation tool which is an open source and easily available in the market. So we will not touch about the history, how the Selenium is evolved, but Selenium actually we'll talk about Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver is an interface by definition, but if we talk about what it is, actually it is the backbone of Selenium automation tool today, and it is responsible for receiving the commands from the client and then take action and send them to the specific browser. So how it does, it uses the JSON wire protocol to send such information to the browser and then perform actions. For example, from your code you send a command for clicking an element, then it goes to the browser ultimately. So there are various benefits which are associated with Selenium. So some of them is like it is open source, it is platform independent, it easily integrates with third-party APIs, and if we talk about it, easy to install, configure, etc. But there are some problems as well, like it only supports the browser testing, web browser testing. It doesn't support the image recognition, etc. So of course there are pros and cons, but for browser, other than browser testing, if you want to do some image recognition, you can still integrate with some third-party tools like Sequely, etc. So we will talk about now the Selenium WebDriver hierarchy. So we have WebDriver, then we have remote driver implementing this interface, and then we have various classes corresponding to every browser which extend the remote WebDriver. So ultimately you create an object of a browser specific class, and but the methods at the backend remains generalized, like you call the method irrespective of the browser, and ultimately the object decides which particular browser it has to send the action based on the object you create. Now we have the driver with us, the framework with us. The important thing to know about Selenium is to how we can find out the locators, the unique element on the screen, so that we can perform actions. So there are various locator strategies, like you can find an element by its ID, by its name, CSS, and sometimes using XPath. So most of the product tools like the SAP or Oracle HCM or many tools like them, they do not have a unique ID generally associated with them. So in such cases you can make use of the XPath elements. So you can see on the screen how we can create the XPath using the ID or some other attributes of that particular element. Using the locators, like WebDriver generates the web element. So web element is nothing but an object referring to a unique element on the screen. So you can have elements created based on the XPath, ID, etc. Corresponding to every locator, you will have one element on the screen. So now with that web element, what actions we can do are the methods associated with that web element. For example, you can click on an element, you can send text if it is a text type of element, you can verify the existence of that element, you can see if the element is present or not present, if you can check the properties of that element. For example, by getting the text, you can see what is the text inside that element, you can verify the color of that element, etc. So this is how we do the Selenium performs the automation testing, right? It creates the web element using the WebDriver interface, and then ultimately using those web elements you perform the action which you manually perform on an application. While you see there are a lot of benefits using Selenium, but there is one more drawback which is not very crucial, but good to know, that Selenium does not have its own test runner, which means in order to execute your test cases with Selenium, either you have to integrate it with any available test runners, or you call your test cases through a main method or some logic, right, which you custom write it. So one such test runner is TestNG. There are more like JUnit, Cucumber, JBehave, etc. So, but today for this discussion, we will continue with TestNG. So, TestNG is a test runner which have its own framework, right? You don't need to write it from scratch. You just need to integrate it with your framework, and then you can create your test cases in a well-designed manner. So with TestNG, you can have annotations, you can have, you can pass data using data provider, you can arrange your test cases into certain order, you can achieve parallelism in the test cases using TestNG, but you can run the test cases, some serial, some parallel, based on the requirements. In TestNG have its own custom reports, right, which are very much user friendly. You can utilize them. It has emailable report as well, which is an HTML report showing the important feature of the reports. Similarly, you can also take a screenshot and attach it with the report within TestNG. So hence thereby we can use TestNG with Selenium in order to execute our test cases in a controlled manner. While writing the test case, it is very important to assert the failures, right? For example, while you are doing any verification on the screen especially, so you should be knowing where you want to fail the test case there itself, or the test case can continue without that object available on the screen. So for example, if you are validating some color on the screen, but that doesn't stop any functionality on the screen, so such assertion you can mark as soft assert using TestNG assertions, and can continue with the execution of the rest of the test case, because the functionality can still work, but there is a problem, a cosmetic kind of issues. Like for example, there is a message which is having a spelling mistake. So that spelling mistake doesn't stop you to complete the functionality, but it is an issue with the application. Such issues you can mark as soft assert. Otherwise, if you see that the test case cannot continue without a particular step getting passed, then you should fail the test case then and there itself. So it is very important for you to return the proper return type, like a boolean or an object from every sub method you create within your test classes, so that you can decide on whether you want to continue on the next step, or you want to fail the test case then and there itself. So here is a small example of a TestNG program where you see a lot of annotations like at the red test, before test, and then after test. Similarly, we can have before suit, after suit, before method, after method. Everything is there possible, right? So out of those annotations, you can decide what you want to put into what category. Like for example, if something is should be available globally during the execution, you can do it before suit, like the cleanup kind of activity, or populating some prerequisite data, something like that. You can put it in the before suit method, while the cleanup of such activities can go into after suit. If you want to do something before the test start, for example, the launch, the browser launch, and the login to the application generally, so those you can put into before test methods. So similarly, we can have various more things which can be there into these methods based on the requirements. So here is a small example of a TestNG program where you see a lot of annotations like at the red test, before test, and then after test. Similarly, we can have before suit, after suit, before method, after method. Everything is there possible, right? So out of those annotations, you can decide what you want to put into what category. Like for example, if something is should be available globally during the execution. You can do it before suit, like the cleanup kind of activity, or populating some prerequisite data, something like that. You can put it in the before suit method, while the cleanup of such activities can go into after suit. If you want to do something before the test start, for example the browser launch and the login to the application generally, so those you can put into before test methods. So similarly, we can have various more things which can be there into these methods based on the requirements. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe, share and comment. Hope you like it. Goodbye.